Welcome back. I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving yesterday. This story came up while I was visiting with some students that had traveled in to see me. And then today, again, somebody asked a question which brought up this story. So I thought I would share this story with all of you. I think it's a wonderful story. There's a lot of lessons inside of it. It certainly provided a lot of lessons for me, which I've been so thankful for all this time. So let's get into it. So, to set the stage, I was in the ashram. I'd been living there for over 5 years. And the process of getting in took another 2 years. So, a total almost of 7 years living a monastic lifestyle. And I had ripped a ligament between the hip bone and the femur. That's the large leg bone, right? I had ripped a ligament, and it caused the femur to go up inside of the hip joint and put pressure on the sciatic nerve. And it was creating a river of hot lava going down my leg. And I told that to one medical specialist, a doctor. He says, you shouldn't be able to feel that. And I looked at him like, well, I do. And I'm kind of a strange case, doctor. I'm a yogi, so I feel things a little bit differently internally. And he's like, okay, but you shouldn't be able to feel it like that. That's a little pronounced. And so, well, that's exactly what it feels like. It feels like hot lava going down my leg every time I get up to walk. The doctors couldn't figure out, was it in my spine? Where was it? What was the problem? I went to specialist after specialist. And meanwhile, I couldn't walk. I remember I was in the postulant ashram, and my Austrian boss didn't really believe that I had a problem. And so he's like, well, why don't you just come out to the office and do some work there? And so I would make my way down the hallway, and by the time I got outside, I was already in extreme pain. And I would limp my way to the office and do work. I was happy to do work. I was so happy to do work, but it was just killing me. And every time, what was happening, every time I would walk, I would re-injure myself. And so it was ripping this ligament over and over again. And we didn't know what it was. The doctors didn't know what it was. And I was really in a predicament. I was in my late 20s, if I remember correctly. I was very young, and I remember thinking to myself, oh my goodness, I'm only in my 20s and I'm already an old man. I'm going to have to use a wheelchair or something. I'm an old man already. It was a very strange predicament that I found myself in. Plus, my supervisor didn't believe me. He had that Austrian blood inside of him, and he's like, oh, I don't see anything wrong with you. Snap out of it. Rub some dirt in it, you know? Eventually, I was transferred to another ashram, and I still had the injury, and I didn't know how I was going to survive in my life because of this debilitating injury. I couldn't even walk. How am I going to, I can do my yoga. That's no problem. But what about the rest of my life? Meanwhile, I was having this huge conflict inside of myself. I absolutely knew that the monastic life was not for me. While I was in the midst of this huge internal pressure cooker that was going on, this conflict between being in a monastic environment and knowing it wasn't right for me anymore, while that happened, I had this huge conflict with a few of the monks, and it really brought it home extremely clearly to me that I was in the wrong place, and I didn't need to be there anymore. And there were things that are outside that I wanted to learn and that were being restricted from me. And it didn't make any sense to me at all. And so the authoritarian environment was no longer correct, you see. So I came back to my room and I fell down onto my knees and I started praying to Divine Mother. She was my favorite form of the divine to talk to, and I just prayed my heart out, and I was crying, and I was, bringing up everything that that had happened to me. And I just came to this huge conclusion very, very clearly. And I said, Divine Mother, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I feel like I promised you I was going to stay here for the rest of my life, and I can't do it. It's not right for me. I, I, I have to leave. And I'm bawling, I'm crying my eyes out. And at that moment, a bolt of lightning comes down through the top of my head, goes straight down my spine. It feels as if it's going right down my spine, and it embeds itself into the darkness in my right hip where the injury was. And it was just like a bolt of light. Of course, no, there was no lightning in the sky. It was all an internal experience, right? But it felt just like a bolt of lightning had gone straight through me and into the injury. And I had no idea what just happened. And then I heard Divine Mother's voice. And it was the voiceless voice that Saint Teresa of Avila sometimes talks about. It's not a voice that I heard with my ears, and it's not as if I heard words. I understood words, and I understood it clearly and instantly. And that's how I define the voiceless voice. So if you ever wondered what the voiceless voice is, that's what it is. The words are understood, but they're still words. You see, it's a very interesting, unique experience how the energy falls out through the left hippocampus and you experience those words. So I heard the voiceless voice, and Divine Mother said to me, it was so overwhelming because suddenly, as she said it, I realized that my external life was a metaphor for my internal life. And she said to me, now you can walk forward in your life. Because I had been keeping myself trapped in the ashram. I knew that it was wrong. I felt that it was wrong. And I had come to this conclusion over and over again. I didn't want to make a hasty judgment and jump up and run away. I came to this conclusion over and over again. And so I knew that it was wrong. I knew I was in the wrong place. And here she was, I was breaking down, telling her I'm sorry. And she's like, no, my son, you're mistaken. Now you can walk forward in your life. And it was just an incredible experience. It wasn't an instant healing. It was a healing, but it was not an instant healing. I got up. I continued with my life. I went back again to a very gifted chiropractor I'd been seeing. And out of nowhere, he gets an inspiration. He says, I've been thinking about you, and I want to give you this brace. And he gave me this hip brace, which you wrap around your hips. And what it does is it isolates the hips and everything inside in place so it can heal back together. That's exactly what happened. I wore the hip brace constantly. Whenever I was standing, whenever I was walking, I was wearing that hip brace constantly. That's what makes it work. And in 1 month, my hip healed. This devastating injury, which I thought was going to be permanent, which had lasted for over a year in my life. I was really didn't know what to do, was suddenly healed in a month, right after that prayer and right after that experience. So somebody was asking me, they had a similar experience where they felt this bolt of lightning come through them. And you might have another kind of Kundalini experience where you feel like a rocket coming up the spine. So there's all these different experiences when you become aware of the movement inside of the body of energy. And I classify all of that as Kundalini awakening, because what was asleep, what you were not aware of, suddenly becomes awake. So that's the difference. It's not that you're, enlightened, of course not, but it's an awakening inside of you of feeling energy, being able to feel energy. And then, of course, my teacher taught me, Ashokji, he taught me, take that one step farther, feel bliss. Then take that one step farther, feel the consciousness rise up in your body and go back into the brain. That's the roll-up. That's the bliss. And that's really what guides me. Okay, so don't get locked up into energy, but you're going to have these experiences perhaps. Maybe you only have it once. It doesn't matter. You're still becoming aware of what is inside this internal movement inside of you. And that classifies for Kundalini. And what was once only in the subconscious is now becoming conscious. And that's the process that allows the reflection of the much higher gamma brainwaves. First, we have to assimilate with some of those slower subconscious waves. And so you see that in the experience, I was assimilated inside this energetic experience, which is passing through the subconscious and passing through the body. Through the body, it's still very physical, right? And then the higher self spoke to me through the voice of Divine Mother, you see. Ishtas can be a little bit confusing. It's like, well, okay, was it the higher self? Was it God? Was it Divine Mother? Was it Krishna? Was it Buddha? How do these all fit together? The higher self is all one. And the divine will use whatever window you created. So if you were praying to Krishna, then God will come through that window to you as Krishna. And if you were praying to Buddha, then God will come to you as Buddha. It doesn't matter to the divine. It's a window, and it's gonna be used. That you created a window. I'm coming through. I have something to say to you. I remember right next to the ashram, there was a little old lady that I used to work for. Sweet as could be, yogini. She had been meditating for years and years, and I would garden for her for extra money. And I would do little jobs in her garden. She had a beautiful little house and a little garden. And I came to her before I left the ashram, and I explained to her I was leaving, and I was okay with it. And she says, "Oh, no, you shouldn't leave. You shouldn't leave. The whole world is going to hell in a handbasket, and you know, you're much safer inside of the ashram." And I told her, I was very close with her, and I told her this experience, and she goes, "Oh, so you have to leave." And I said, "Yes, I do." And that's the blessing that comes through from the right brain, from the higher self, from the guardian angel. It comes through as this deep knowing inside of you. And so the knowing was already there, but I was in conflict. I had my doubts, right? And so finally the higher self was able to come through in that window of a moment, in that deep earnest prayer inside of me. It was able to shine through and say, this is good, this is correct, you're going in the right way. And that's how you know it was a very deep experience. It might not be as dramatic as the one I'm describing, but you know it was a real experience when it leads you in the correct direction. And so you have to watch that play out in your life. So you listen to a direction from the higher self, you think you get a direction from the higher self, and then you follow it, and you see what happens in your life. Did it work out well? Was it helpful? Did it guide you correctly? And when the answer is yes, then you are listening to the higher self. You're getting that message, and you're leading yourself in the correct direction, in the very best direction at that moment. Now you might get another feeling, you might get another message from the higher self in your dreams, or in your meditation, or suddenly in a moment of relaxation, or in prayer. Whatever window the divine can use, it will squeeze through. So, a lot of people tell me, this experience that I had, they tell me their experience. This didn't happen in meditation. Well, you're probably too concentrated in that meditation. And then you came out and you just kind of relaxed. And so you did the do, and then you went to the be. And it was in the moment of the be that the higher self shined through. So I hope this was interesting and inspiring and informative. I hope you loved it. And if you did, be sure to hit that bell down below so I can see all of you next time.